Technology and the occult. How technology is used in rituals and magic. The idea of the magic circle has received both praise and criticism throughout the history of game studies, where it is used as a metaphor to analyze the limits of play. The Defense of the Magic Circle by Jocko Stenrose broadens its metaphorical applicability to describe the psychological bubble formed during gameplay, the social contracts that frame the action of gameplay, and the defining of the gaming locations or areas. The concept that new meanings are created as games are played is the magic circle, as Eric Zimmerman explains. The understanding of the magic circle as a tool to explain the relationships, participation, and meanings produced by games is expanded upon in this article. The magic circle, I contend, is more than just a metaphor for comprehending the limits of play. It is also a technology that paradoxically erects and disturbs ontological divisions, as well as a ritual technique that enacts a reciprocal participation between people and things, as do many forms of magic. I want to change the conversation away from anthropocentric notions of play and towards the magic circle as a tool that reveals mutual participation and mutual absorption between the player and world, drawing on speculative and animist philosophies. The materialist currents in modern philosophy that question the primacy of concepts and ideas over material reality, beings, and objects have an influence on the magic circle as an occult tool. It draws inspiration from the school of modern philosophy known as speculative realism, which rejects the Kantian division between perception and the outside world that has dominated philosophy since the 17th century. Speculative realism seeks to articulate reality as something other than the correlation of human thought. My discussion of magic owes a debt to the contemporary animisms that have emerged in anthropology and philosophy over the past 20 years. These animisms challenge the colonialist idea that animism is the primitive imputing of spirit to the inanimate world through a variety of relational and more than human ontologies. Despite the differences in these ideologies, they all share the desire to dispel anthropocentrism and discover how to think about and exist in a world that is larger than humans. The LARP magic. One type of play that works well with materialist philosophies is LARP. The ludic and narrative affordances of LARP distinguish it from other gaming hobbies. According to this article, LARPs are physically immersive role-playing games that require participants to spend a few hours to several days acting out a story in different roles. Player characters are required to respond to dramatic situations, ludic challenges, and narrative crises during this period through an immersive embodied performance that makes up the game itself. The improvised story that results and interacts with the ludic structure, which consists of gameplay features that control player character activities. The concentration on embodied immersion and the requirement that players interact with their physical environment separates the LARP experience from playing tabletop games. As Laura Mitchell and I argue, despite sharing fundamentally comparable operating elements, LARP requires constant participation in the form of first-person, embodied action, without the option of retreating into the third-person narrative, unlike tabletop role-playing games, for instance. A technology used by LARP participants to prototype worlds and relationships has already been described. In her examination of LARP as a technology, Lizzie Stark makes the case that the methods used in game creation and play enable the representation of risky, laborious, and impractical phenomena, such as magic spells. According to Stark, LARP provides a toolbox that enables participants to alter and hack their identities and interpersonal connections. LARP is emphasized by Stark as an anthropogenic that has the power to alter social ontologies. This is also true of Axel Casaneuve's description of LARP as a magical practice, which emphasizes players' participation in the changes LARP brings about and the change in how people view the world as a result. In light of the research done by Stark and Casaneuve, it is tempting to stress LARP as a technology that enhances player agency by linking its magic concept to the ability of games to alter players' social ontologies, worldviews, and identities. The College of Wizardry LARP series is the clearest illustration of this. It created a straightforward magic spell system that enables any player to attempt to cast any spell for any effect they desired. However, the focus on horror-themed games in this paper contributes to a more general argument about the nature of games and their analysis of the magic circle as a material and non-human element of play. This is true even though it is helpful to think about magic Magic circles, and LARP as social ontologies. The magic circle is a device that erects and disrupts barriers between the human world of ordinary experience and the hidden world of reality. In itself, and horror games are excellent examples since they depend on the disruptive aesthetics of occultism to create this effect. LARP's the magic circle, technology and props. The magic circle's tangible in-game impacts are highlighted by understanding it as a technology that invokes the idea of craft, as was previously mentioned. In a horror LARP called Who Do You Think You Are?, we painted a set of stones with an elder sign and placed them around the perimeter of a property. This created magic circles. I use the term prop in keeping with Kendall Walton and Chris Bateman when I claim that props are generative in the sense that they prescribe particular imaginings, arouse emotions, and create the game's fictional universe. In contrast to content-oriented methods, Walton's prop-oriented perspective contends that objects have independent existences separate from their narrative functions. Walton reverses the idea that a prop is a tool through which we comprehend the narrative by emphasizing the item's generative consequences. This interpretation of props as agentic is consistent with the independence and agency accorded to inanimate objects in modern animism and speculative realism. These concepts are starting to be investigated in the field of game studies, as seen, for instance, in Rafael Baenia's analysis of the many components of tabletop role-playing games as social actors. The circle's function as a technology is further implied by the idea that it serves both esoteric and scientific purposes. By blending the lines between the natural and supernatural orders of reality and implying the integration of science and magic that Gostin notes are a feature of human culture throughout history, horror LARP draws on the numerous instances in horror fiction where a magic circle is produced by a piece of technical equipment. The interactions between various agencies, including both human and non-human creatures and things, in these occult technologies are where the magic circle's effects are generated. Players in the LARP X marks the spot created a hand-held device that produced the energy necessary to banish an eldritch inter-dimensional creature from the player's reality using a combination of everyday items, including a microwave, bodily fluids, simulated by a fake blood prop, and a mixture of occult herbs. The assemblage object served as a technical magic circle that could open and close dimensional barriers. The prop served as a ludic technology that signaled the conclusion of the LARP, because its effective employment during the last action scene caused the game's organizers to declare a timeout. Magic circles that are doubled and dissolved. This illustration of a prop that served as both a ludic object signifying the end of the play and a technologically esoteric in-game device highlights the slippages between in and out of game frames used in LARP. In this way, the LARP magic circle is a weirdly doubled and doubling device that delineates the borders between play and not play while simultaneously recording them in time and place. Another intriguing example comes from Who Do You Think You Are Magic? Stones. A non-player character in the game story had used the stones to create a circle of safety, but our player characters were unable to escape since they had been bitten by a terrifying parasite. The magic circle had additional material effects in addition to the story. The objects served as hints for the players to decipher the LARP story, forming a ludic puzzle. In terms of the concealed, or dark, agenda of the game designers, the stones produced feelings of entrapment as player characters grew anxious about being unable to escape their fate. The objects also served as practical markers for the play area and provided players with a narrative reason. The boundary marker stones, as a ludic technology, combined player and character frames in their providing of this narrative rationale for staying in the game rather than simply leaving. Reasonable characters would undoubtedly want to flee the situation in the game or race to the nearest source of help, but the player is aware of the game's spatial restrictions. How was the video? Do you enjoy it? Tell us in our comments section below and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates.